Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. One man's anonymous and live account of if he should get a divorce or stay married. He's been cheated on, and he's cheated. Protecting the innocent with changed voice patterns, the omission of names, ages, and genders. His authentic journey and account of the daily events of his marriage are helping him sort out his feelings and not get lost in the ups or the downs. New episodes are released daily. Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
In this episode of Divorce Diaries, I want to talk about something that I learned, the new stance that I have. In this episode of Divorce Diaries, I want to talk about a new stance that I have that I didn't always, as far as it relates to corporal punishment. I am 100% now totally against corporally punishing a child. If you don't know what corporal punishment versus capital punishment is when you commit a capital offense like murder, you are then given the death penalty and you are killed. Maybe it happens quickly, maybe not, but you are then killed by the state that you live in, or the municipality, whatever. Corporal punishment is the spanking of a child. Catholic Church used to paddle children, things like that. But it is the person or person of authority immediately administering a punishment. I don't know why it's called corporal, but usually it's like spanking, something physical. It's not like timeouts. That's when you go and sit in the corner, stuff like that. But corporal punishment is like spanking, spank your hand, whatever. Now, I grew up in an environment where corporal punishment was not only accepted, but it was expected. If you did something wrong, you're going to get a spanking. You're going to be in trouble. These things happened. But now, the thing that you don't get to determine is what your words, actions, whether they be physical, verbal, whatever, what will they do to a particular child? How will a particular child be influenced by being corporally punished? I'm going to tell you some history about me. And this is another reason why I am in therapy and need to be in therapy. I want to unpack this. I don't really think, this is what the famous last words from a fucking idiot, I don't think the fact that I had corporal punishment my entire life growing up, I don't think I'm any worse for wear. Ha 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 ha. I have no idea what traumas I may have had, and I have still, from me being punished corporally, me being spanked. I remember being at my grandparents' house. This happened plenty of times, more times than I can count. Being a mischievous boy with my other mischievous boy cousins, cutting up, doing things, and really, it's not even mischievous. I mean, we're throwing rocks at trees, and we're taking cans and we're throwing them at each other. We're having dirt fights, and we're doing all of these other stupid things that little boys do. If we tracked it in the house or we did something that my grandmother didn't like, you're in so much trouble. Boy, go outside and pick a switch. I'm going to spank you. First time, I'm like, what the hell's a switch? She grabbed me by my arm and pulled me, and she pointed a tree over there, and she's like, a switch is a stick. You get a switch. You go and you break a switch off of there. And she would also say, and you make sure it's not too well, she didn't curse. She's like, make sure it's not too thin either. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what she didn't want to spank me with a belt. That was my parents. I got plenty of spankings with belts. And I would snap the switch branch off the tree and bring it back in, and she'd spank us with the switch. And there's always an interesting switch kerfuffle, because if you grab a switch that's too thin, it feels like a whip. Grab one that's too thick, it feels like a bat. But if you grab a medium one, it's the best of both worlds. So it's like a hard whip, a bat whip. It's like, doesn't Batman have that tool in his toolbox? Bat whip, go! So, like right now, I just told a joke around it. I really don't feel like I'm any worse for wear from having been corporally punished. In fact, I know there's at least 20 to 50 spankings I've left on the table. Mom, you don't know, but you owe me 10 more. I'm saying that to make a joke and make light of it, but it's not a light issue at all. You don't know, as a parent, which one of your children will be relatively not, quote unquote, visibly affected by being spanked or any other form of corporal punishment. You don't know. You don't know which kid might, that scowl, because every kid is different. If you're a parent, you understand what I'm saying. One kid, you could just look at them and give them that look, and they're totally in line. One of them might even cry because you gave them that look, squinting your eyes and just kind of, if you make me open my mouth, that's, and that kid is straightened up just like that. There's another kid, you don't mean that. There's your tester. Your kid's like, whatever, fuck you. You don't mean that shit. I will call your bluff, Mom. Then you got another kid where it might, and depending on what they're going through, it might affect them in one way on this day, but another way on that day, and you keep prescribing the same prescription to solving this problem of your child's insubordination, disobedience, or whatever, and the way you're punishing them, that form, and it hurts them. And you never know when the kid is 15, 20, 25, and they say, when you did this to me, when you spanked me that day, I never looked at you the same. I view you as a bully. I view you as a person that just wanted to usurp all their power and control on the kid. It's very, very difficult to know what your actions as a parent, and this could even go outside of corporal punishment. If you tell your kid, I think you can do better, some kids are motivated by such a statement. Some kids are insulted to motivation by such a statement. I think you can do better. Some kids might shrink and feel that they are inadequate because they didn't live up to something, and it causes them to maybe respond in a way that is in a downward trend of downward spiral. You don't know for sure what anything you say or do is going to do to your kids as they get older. So the one thing you can control, like I said, my sister-in-law, that was like her famous thing. It should be on a t-shirt. I've heard other people say it, but maybe it was just because it resonated with me so much. That's why I love that statement so much. She said, you can only control what you can control. And you can't necessarily control how someone might interpret your words because you feel like you may need to say those words to that person. You need to tell them those words, but you don't know how they'll respond to it. Okay, fine. But you don't need to spank your child. You don't need to pop their hand if they touch the stove, even though we all might agree, oh, a little swat on the butt isn't so bad. Smacking their hand is better to do that than have them get burned, or yanking them away from the street when they were going to run into the street and maybe grabbing their shoulders and saying, don't you ever do that again, in your haste, because that is better than them being run over by a car and potentially killed. We do the things that we do because we think it's going to be the best thing in that moment for our kids to keep them safe, whether it be physically safe or emotionally safe, or ultimately mentally safe and kept safe as they live in this world and they move through it. Because there's so many dangers, you'd rather be the one correcting them. Like some people may say, I'd rather spank my son so at least he's getting it from me, as opposed to the police. I want to discipline him here so that he's not disciplined out there by people that don't care about him. It's a perfectly admirable stance as a parent, but you don't know what you can't control. At least I understand that now. I can't control my emotions as much as I thought I could, if at all. They're emotions. They just come and they go and they change and they're hot and they're cold. I don't know how to control my emotions. So what if My emotions are at a place that I don't realize they're at. Right when one of my kids does something they shouldn't, and maybe my response, because I've adopted the idea that corporal punishment is appropriate for a child, and I adopt that idea, but I'm a little bit angry. And as I go to swat their butt, I swat their butt with some anger behind it. And as I'm thinking these things, I'm thinking angry thoughts. So I'm disciplining maybe verbally with anger, emotionally with anger, physically also with anger. And you never know. I'm sorry, I don't know where I left off on that recording. Got a phone call from my brother-in-law and ex-brother-in-law, actually. Had to take it. But the moral of the story is, and I'll wrap it, the effects that corporal punishment can have on a child are things that you can never know. I grew up in a time where picking your switch, getting your butt spanked, pants down, naked butt cheeks, a lot of that mentality definitely probably came down from how slaves were disciplined and by their masters. And then those slaves likely administered the same type of corporal punishment to their children, because that's how they were probably made to give the master different results. They get whipped and they perform. And they perform in spite of and despite the pain that they're in. So the slaves likely did the same things, because hurt people, and you usually use the same trauma weapon that was used against you, because that is familiar. So the corporal punishment that I doled out, that was doled out to me, I eventually doled that out. And now, because we are in a Me Too feelings, I felt this way version of America, you don't know how your corporal punishment, even your words, but I'm talking about corporal punishment, you don't know how your corporal punishment will scar, potentially, your children. And if you don't want that, which I don't and I didn't, you should not corporally punish a child. Because unlike when I grew up, I don't feel like I'm worse for wear from being physically disciplined. But who knows? But I do know today that if some child walked up to a stranger and said, I got a spanking, the person may actually grab the child, comfort them, and immediately make a call to the police or Child Protective Services. They will not ask questions. There will be no passing go. You will not find out that, oh yeah, I got a spanking after I pushed my little sister down the steps. I got a spanking after my mom saw me kick the dog, and the dog is like a little Maltese. I got a spanking after I told my mom I'm not eating my dinner and I threw my food on the floor. The context doesn't matter today. When I was asked to finish my plate as a kid, it made me feel like I was inadequate, like I could never please you. I've heard children say this. Because their parents wanted them to eat all of their food, they felt as if they couldn't please their parents or they weren't worthy. Or when I hit my sister and I got a spanking, my mother didn't even want to hear my side of the story. She's like, why would I hear your side of the story? I was trying to let you know that your sister's 3 and you're 9. You cannot hit her. Do not hit her. And then the child might also say, you got so mad at me for hitting her. And then what did you do? You hit me in return. Where do you think I got it from, Mom? Well, you narcissistic, fact-twisting little piece of shit. I guess you got me there. Checkmate. You're right. So again, no more corporal punishment. I'm definitely an advocate for anything but corporal punishment. Do I think it's probably necessary? Yep, it probably is. But you don't know the effects of what corporal punishment will do and how individual children will respond to having been corporally punished. It may scar them for life. They may not be any worse for wear. You'll never know. So why take that risk?
Wow. That was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully, these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.